Okay, we can go ahead and start. Ragraganya gana go to Goloru Haram, Goranga Guru Tama Gopyada Kopa Briksham, Gopala Gada Ratidam, Yati Singha Gora Govinda Deshi Kavaram, Satatam Namam. Tama Adama Kichuna Bachila Jachi Ajile Kakola Kahe Premananda Hemona Goranga Hridoya Dariya Bola Bhaja Goranga Kaha Goranga Laha Gorangira Namare Jai Jana Goranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yashaiva Padambuja Bhakti Labhya Prema-bhakti-candrika Parama-pumata Tasmai Jagan-mangala Mangalaya Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Chaitanya Chandraya Namo Namaste Madgavirapi Gopalam Sri Kriyat Kripaya Jadi Tadaiva Sambhaya Pitva Risha Yustad Priyana Janaha Shri Krishna Krishna Chaitanya Sasanatana Rupaka Gopala Raghunathabda Brajabala Bapahimam Vancha Kalpatarubhishchan Kripa Sindhu Vyevachan Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Shri Krishna Namamrita Varshi Bhaktram Chandra Prabhadvasta Tamubharaya Gauranga Deva Anucharaya Namo Namah Shila Naratamaya. Again and again I offer my obeisances unto Srila Narottam Das Thakur. He is indeed a true follower of Lord Gauranga Dev. The nectarian shower of the holy name radiating from the moon of his mouth destroys the darkness of ignorance. So today we're starting a new section, which is called Akantika Bhakta Riti, which means, Riti means the characteristics of a bhakta, devotee who's akantika, who's unalloyed. And this is such an important subject matter and such a wonderful thing for us to meditate on. And before we even look at the verses, I want to begin by looking back at the verse in the previous session. I want us to meditate on our purpose in looking at this. And let's try to understand our position. It's extremely important if we want to advance in bhakti, to understand our own situation, not be living in some kind of fantasy. So there's two things, as we were speaking in our last session. One is to practice something, another is to realize something. So we want to hear about these characteristics of an unalloyed devotee. We may not have these characteristics. I certainly know that in my case, I don't. But it's very important that we hear about them. So let's go ahead and look back at the last verse, which in chapter 6 was text 20. Sakigana charipase, seva kori abilase, paramase sukha, seva sukha dhare, e bhane mora, mane mora, e rase hanabhora, narotama sadai bihari. And how the Sakis surround Radha and Krishna on all four sides, and while serving them, feel ecstatic bliss in their hearts. Narottam Das desires such service, being absorbed in loving transcendental mellows. So that's our goal. This is what we want. And we were hearing in the last session, we were discussing about the different, the moods of the gopis and their utility, their function in Radha Krishna Leela, their all important role. So let's go on with today's verse. Radha Krishna Karunjana Swapanena Balaana Prema-bhakti-candrika Ananahi Chanu Jugala Kishora Prema Lakshabana Jaina Hema Arati Piriti Rasidyan. Thank you, Bhakti. I'm just giving an online class right now. Really expensive. It is. I don't know. I'm just giving class right now. So Narottam Das Thakur, the first thing that he says while he's speaking about this lakshana, this qualities of an unalloyed devotee, is that Radha Krishna Karun Dhyan, that I should be thinking, I should be doing dhyan, I should be meditating on Radha Krishna Swapanena Balaan. While I'm sleeping, I shouldn't even dream about anything else. Now, Balaan. I shouldn't speak about anything else. Balaan, especially any mundane topics or anything. Prema vinu ana nahi chanu. He says that all that I should hear is about Krishna Prema. Nahi chanu. I shouldn't desire, I shouldn't be hankering for anything else. Jugala Kishora Prema, Laksha, Bana, Jaina, Hema, Arati Piriti Rasidyan. And he says that this Prema of the divine couple, all that I want to hanker for, it's Laksha, Bana, Jana, Hema. It's so pure. It's just like Laksha, Bana. Bana means the purified gold. So Hema means gold. So you may refine that gold. Bana means to be refined. Laksha, you may do it 1,000,000 times. And this is how beautiful and how pure this love for Radha Krishna is. And it also indicates how pure our hearts should be. Arati Rasi Jyan. Arati Piriti Rasi Jyan. That I want to meditate very eagerly on these transcendental mellows of Radha and Krishna. So today I want to speak something about dhyan and about Raganuga Bhakti and about our position, because it's such an important thing. If we don't understand our position, then we start fantasizing something that we're not. So first of all, let's look at Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's amazing Sanskrit commentary on this Bengali book. He uses Sanskrit is considered to be the topmost thing in Bengalis. They translate the Sanskrit into Bengali, but Vishwanath has given a Sanskrit commentary on Narottam's Prema-bhakti-candrika, indicating thereby to us how important, how deep Prema-bhakti-candrika is. He says that the phrase Aratik Priti Rasadhyan means Artya Priti Sukha Surupatvena Dhyanam Kuru. Hey mana iti seshaha. Hey mana, hey my dear mind. Iti sesha, you've been so miserable. So now let's stop that. Sesha. Artya Priti Sukha Surupatvena Dhyanam. You should start meditating now on what is the nature of Priti Sukh, the happiness of love. So it's important in the very beginning that we have a philosophical understanding about this subject matter. That's the foundation of our spiritual life. It's sometimes said that the palace of rasa is built on the foundation of Siddhanta. So we should have some understanding about this subject, and then we'll feel inspired to go on with it. So is it a bona fide subject matter at all? Well, first of all, let's look at this letter Srila Prabhupada wrote in 1972 to his disciple Vishwambar, who Krishna Kunja sent me to this today. So it's really perfect. Prabhupada writes back to him, he says, so far your question about the gopis, in the beginning there's no such question. In the beginning, we have to follow the principles of devotional service rigidly, like chanting 16 rounds, regularly following instructions of the spiritual master, which includes study, temple worship, sankirtan, like that. And the more perfect, the more one becomes perfect if he's following his principles, the more his relationship with Krishna becomes manifest. Following in the footsteps of the gopis comes in the perfectional stage. First you come to the perfectional stage, then you talk of the gopis. Going to girls and making them pregnant, then talking of gopis, that's going on. That is nonsense. Without coming to the perfectional stage, if anyone tries to understand the gopis, he becomes a sahajya. Gopis are not ordinary women. They're all expansions of Krishna's pleasure potency. So when we understand Krishna, then we shall understand the gopis. We can simply follow the footprints of the gopis and how they love Krishna. Okay, let's look at this. Sometimes Srila Prabhupada says things which Srila Prabhupada, and we want to follow and appreciate Prabhupada so much, but sometimes we say, well, wait a minute, that doesn't exactly completely makes sense. Prabhupada says, if anyone tries to understand the gopis, he becomes a sahajya. Okay, Prabhupada said that. But then why did Srila Prabhupada give Krishna book, which speaks about the gopis in so many chapters? Why did he give us teachings of Lord Chaitanya? So I suggest then that we had to be careful and understand the context of this letter is written to an early disciple, and that there's some subtlety here. So obviously, it's not that we should not try to understand the gopis, even as we often point out in a conversation with the editors of Back to Godhead magazine, Srila Prabhupada told them that we should not boycott the gopis. It's not for writing in Back to Godhead magazine. So that subject matter is not a wrong subject matter, but clearly what Srila Prabhupada is speaking about here is something a little higher. He's talking about Raganuga Bhakti and how we should practice Vaidhi Bhakti up until that point. I like this letter very much. And I can tell you, sometimes I get questions, about this thing and that thing, and what kind of pleasure does Krishna get by putting his tongue in the mouth of the gopis and exchanging the pan or something? Devotees are adding something like that. or just different things. And I don't even like to answer those questions. I don't even like to look at those questions because I'm not qualified for that. And because I know over my shoulder is my Guru Maharaj, and over his shoulder is Srila Prabhupada. And they're watching me. And if I start acting like something that I'm not, if I start doing something which they may not be pleased with, then what kind of result am I going to get? So Srila Prabhupada's very clear here that in the beginning, there's no such question. You don't even ask these kind of questions. So I take that as a very serious thing. It's not that we have to question these things. We should naturally rise to that point. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here. The more one becomes perfect at following his principles, the more his relationship with Krishna becomes manifest. In other words, it's a natural thing. And today I want to speak something about Raganuga Bhakti. What is Raganuga Bhakti? How do we practice Raganuga Bhakti? What is Smarana? And what is our connection with it? So it's not, first of all, I'd just like to establish the very important point that remembrance is not wrong. Sometimes devotees, they think like that. They say work now and samadhi later, Prabhu, which is a statement Srila Prabhupada made. But again, we're not fully satisfied with that because that's Ardhakukuti Nyaya. That's the logic of half a hen. Because you're ignoring other things that Srila Prabhupada said and Prabhupada wrote and Prabhupada wanted distributed in Krishna book and in other places. Let's look at a statement Srila Prabhupada made in chapter 46 of Krishna book. Since Krishna had departed from Vrindavan and gone to Mathura, the inhabitants of Vrindavan, especially Mother Yashoda, Nanda Maharaj, Shrimati Radharani, the gopis and the cowherd boys, were simply thinking of Krishna at every step. They were thinking, here Krishna was playing in this way. Here Krishna was blowing his flute. Krishna was joking with us in this way. And Krishna was embracing us like this. This is called Leela Smarna. And it is a process of association with Krishna most recommended by great devotees. Even Lord Chaitanya, when he was at Puri, enjoyed Leela Smarna association with Krishna. Those in the most exalted position of devotional service and ecstasy can live with Krishna always by remembering his passing. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has given us a transcendental literary work entitled Krishna Bhavanamrita, which is full with Krishna's pastimes. Exalted devotees can remain absorbed in Krishna thought by reading such books. Any book of Krishna Leela, even this book Krishna, or our teachings of Lord Chaitanya, is actually solace for devotees feeling separation from Krishna. Well, there we have it. Srila Prabhupada writes this in Krishna book. Now, in this comments here, he's making several points which are very important for us to contemplate in a deep way. So, Leela Smarana is most recommended by great devotees. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was enjoying Leela Smarana association with Krishna. But Prabhupada says this is this is a very exalted thing. It's for persons who are in the most exalted position of devotional service and ecstasy. They can always remember Krishna in this way. So again and again, he's pointing out these exalted devotees, but he's giving us this. He's writing this in Krishna book, which he wanted to distribute it to a bunch of drug-crazed naked hippies in the 1960s. Prabhupada wanted this book to be distributed like anything to everyone. So what does that mean? Is that mean that gosh, this is something wrong, we shouldn't include this? No, Prabhupada, because we should understand such things exist. There should be a conception, and this conception will give us inspiration to go further till we come to the point of realization. Indeed, in teachings of Lord Chaitanya and in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there are so many different verses given from Govinda Lilamrita in different places, which are books about Krishna Smarana. So Smarana is a very important subject matter. I'd like to look in Hari Bhakti Vilas. Now, Hari Bhakti Vilas has a whole section about Smarana, and it quotes a verse, beautiful verse from the Padma Purana. Let's look at this and the commentary by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, by Srila Sanatana Goswami. Jayanti Purisham Divyam Achutam Cha Smaranti Ye Labhanti Te Tutastanam Shrutir Esha Paratani. It's been heard in the old days that anyone who meditates on the divine person Achyuta, remembers him, will attain Achyuta's abode. So this jnana, this smarana is required. Jnana, this meditation, this smarana, this remembrance, is something required. And Sanatana Goswami comments, Jayanti Shri Padabja Talam Arabhya Shri Keshagra Paryantam Tat Tat Sundaryadi Sahitam Chintayanti. So this is the meaning of jnana. It means that chintayanti, that we're contemplating very, very deeply on the Lord. Yanti Shri Padabja Talam, beginning with the soles of his lotus feet, Arabhya Shri Keshagra, up to his hair. We're meditating on these things. And he says that the word cha in the verse, Achutam cha, is joined to the word api, which means that if one just casually or accidentally thinks of Krishna, accidentally thinks of Achyuta, one attains his divine abode. There's a story I sometimes tell, so please forgive me if you've heard this from me before, I like it very much. There was one disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Mataji, whose mother was pretty nasty. She didn't like the devotees. She didn't like Krishna consciousness. She was always saying very bad things about the devotees. And for that reason, her daughter kept away from her. But then later in her life, her mother got cancer and she was dying. And so she requested her daughter, you please come and be with me. I'm going to die. And the daughter went there, and she happened to be with her mother when her mother left her body. After having that experience, the daughter went to Srila Prabhupada and said, Guru Maharaj, I want to tell you what happened with my mother. And you please tell me, what does it mean? And she said her mother, and her very last words before she left her body, she turned, looked at her daughter, and she said, where is your Krishna now? And she left her body. So the daughter asked Srila Prabhupada, well, what happened to my mother? And Prabhupada said, she went back to Godhead. So this is what Sanatana Goswami is pointing out here. That even if someone remembers the Lord in a casual way, not in a very serious way, accidental, but at the time of death, yam yam vapi smadam bhavam tujan chante kalevaram, then one will attain the abode of the Lord. And so then he goes on to explain that between these two words, dhyan and smaran, evam dhyane, smaranayor, abeda means difference. Kalpaniya, there's not so much kalpana, there's not so much difference between this word dhyan and smarana. He says that the basic thing is that when smarana becomes deep, that's really dhyan, that's really meditation. And therefore they're mentioned in a separate way. So this is a very important subject. It's something that we need to contemplate, we should understand as part of our process. There's a beautiful verse in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, is a famous verse spoken by Kunti Devi. She says, Vipada Shantu Tasasvat Tata Tata Jagad Garo. Maybe a few of you know that verse. If you don't, you should know it. Beautiful verse. Vipada means problems. So Kunti Devi says, Vipada Shantu Tasasvat Tata Tata Jagad. Let these problems come again and again. Because when these problems come, I think of you. And then when I remember you, then everything is perfect. So there's another verse describing a similar thing. The vipado, this problems, naiva vipada. That problems are not really problems. Sampada naiva sampada. Fortune, good fortune, wealth, good luck is not really good fortune. Vipad vismaranam vishnu. The only real problem, the only really bad thing is to forget the Lord. And Sampanarayana Smiti, the only real sampada, the only real wealth, only good fortune is to remember him. So it's not enough to just mechanically chant, which is something that we oftentimes do, perhaps. But we should understand in a theoretical way that no, this is not right. I need to remember Krishna when I'm chanting. Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yoga Dana, Bhakti Adi Krishna Nama, Smarana Krandana. Vrindavan Das Thakur says in Chaitanya Bhagavad that Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Bhakti Yoga Dana, Bhakti Yoga is the greatest wealth. It's the greatest yoga. Okay, well then what is Bhakti? Bhakti Adi Krishna Nama. It is Krishna's name, but Smarana Krandana. While we're chanting, we should remember the Lord, and we should cry. So there's a letter Srila Prabhupada wrote to Prahlad Nanda Maharaj in 1971, very early days. Let's look at this. Prabhupada said, generally it is a process to simply chant and hear. But if Krishna's Leela comes into remembrance, that's very good. It should come automatically, not that you're remembering artificially. So if we're trying to remember artificially, means we're not remembering because we don't have a remembrance of Krishna. It should come automatically, should come in a natural way. How does that arise? Otherwise, if we don't do that, we've been speaking about this in other previous sessions also, it's just kalpana. Kalpana means some speculation, some imagination. I'm seeing things through my senses. Prabhupada says in one purport, he says that you see a mountain and you see some gold, and then you have a dream about a golden mountain. So it's just, it doesn't mean you're seeing a golden mountain. It's just based on your senses that you've seen gold and you've seen a mountain. But that's not what a golden mountain looks like. So in the same way, we have some understanding. We think, oh, Krishna looks like this picture that I've seen. Radharani looks like this, and this. And we're just using our mundane senses to try to speculate and understand Radha Krishna Leela. So Narottam, he says very clearly here that it's very important. In the beginning, the first thing he's saying about this Akantiki Bhakti Ritti, the characteristics of an unalloyed devotee, is Radha Krishna Karan Dhyan, that we should meditate on Radha Krishna, Swapani Nabhala An, and don't speak about anything else. Even in your dreams, just be so completely focused on Radha Krishna. So elsewhere in Prema-bhakti-candrika, Narottam Das Thakur speaks about this. It's a verse that we already went over some sessions ago. I'd like to look at it again. Anakata anavyata nahi jena jana tata tomada charana smriti saje abhirata abhikal tuya guna kalaka gahi jena satira samaje. He says that anakata anavyata, that any other subjects, same word is used, anakata or anavyata, some problems or anything. Nahi jena jana tata. Don't go there. Don't even touch it, as we were hearing in a previous session. Tomara charana smriti saje. Rather, may always remember your lotus feet. Now, indirectly, this is another point being made here, that if I'm thinking about these other subjects, then I won't be able to remember Krishna's lotus feet. And how can I remember Krishna's lotus feet? Then Narottam answers that question. Abhirata abhikal tuya guna kalakal gai jena satira samaje. Abhirata abhikal, that I should go and I should hang out with those Hare Krishna people, the real Hare Krishna people, gai jena satira samaj, and in that sat samaj, and that association of elevated devotees, or the sat janas, gai jena, I should be chanting. And how often should I be doing that? Abhirata abhikal, I should be doing it constantly. But abhirata abhikal means I should be doing it in a proper way. Tuya guna kala kala, and I should be glorifying your qualities with association of the devotees. And if I do that, then automatically this remembrance will come. Because if we hear about other topics other than Krishna, especially if we start hearing about politics in the United States today, our mind will become very confused and very, very disturbed. And we see that, honestly, even amongst devotees, persons who come to the path of bhakti, when they want to start talking about the wars that are going on in the world today and the problems and things, they become so very, very confused, and they think, oh, it's this person's fault, and they can't see Krishna's hand. And they stop thinking of Krishna, they start putting blame on different persons who are naimittika karana, who are secondary causes of effect. But Krishna is mula karana. Krishna is the main cause of things, and we want to be seeing Krishna's hand behind everything. There's a story we've heard about Srila Gorakishore Das Babaji, that on one occasion, he was, apparently sometimes, when he was in Navadweep, some young children liked to tease him. He was a pretty far out looking guy with like wild hair and torn clothes and things. And they started throwing stones at him and calling him names. And Gorkishodas Babaji became angry. And he stopped, he turned around, he started shouting. He said, Krishna, if you don't stop this right now, I'm going to tell your mother. So Gorkishodas Babaji, he wasn't saying that all this is because of Mr. Trump or Mr. Putin or this one or that one. And it doesn't mean that we don't live in this world. It doesn't mean that we have to be robots and we can't appreciate what's going on in this world and watch out for things. But if we want to be very serious about bhakti, then we have to see that Krishna is a mula karana. Otherwise, our minds will become disturbed and we won't be able to meditate deeply on Radha Krishna. But if we're seeing Krishna as the cause of everything, sarva karana karanam, it's a difficult pill. And sometimes maybe we can't exactly accept that. Someone's been abused or molested or something. And then sometimes even devotees come and they tell them, Prabhu, you should see Krishna did this. That's not a very cool thing to say. That's very, very bad, in fact. Because it's very hard for them, generally, who've been abused and went through this crisis, to be able to see anything other than the secondary cause of that. We should respect that. But at the same time, we should encourage people in an appropriate way, maybe gently or maybe through some period of time, to see that Krishna is in control and that Krishna is behind everything. Because if we become angry about this issue, we may think, well, I'm in samadhi now, and I'm a great devotee, and I'm just really only thinking of Radha Krishna. And then the price of gasoline goes up. And we become very agitated about it. And we want to go and protest and write to the politicians about it or this or that. And in effect, in the back of our mind, we're recognizing that it's really important that I fix my mind on Radha Krishna. But in effect, we're saying that this one thing is so important that I'll come back to that later on. And how many things are there like that in this world? I don't get along with my wife. Let me think. My children, my daughter needs to get married. My son is going to the university, requires so much money. And let me meditate on it. We should take care of things. We should be responsible in this world. It doesn't mean that we live with our head in the sand, but we have to be constantly thinking of Radha Krishna. And if we want to think of their passions with a concentrated mind, we have to give up our connections with all these other topics. Doesn't mean that we don't understand that they're there, but we feel like we're having an out-of-body experience. And I'm just looking at it, and I'm just seeing who's the president here and what's going on there and this and that. And I'm just observing it. My grandma, she once said that this material world is just like a football match. And sometimes the ball is with one team, sometimes the ball is with the other team, sometimes the ball is on the ground, sometimes the ball is in the air. And Krishna is just watching and enjoying. We should see this world is for Krishna's pleasure. And this world is for Krishna to help his devotees. He comes here to Janma karma chame divyam evam yovati tatvataha, to allow us to see his pastimes and hear about his pastimes so that we can make advancement. And Krishna, one of his external reasons for this material world is to help the devotees. So all these detrimental things going on, we should understand this is Krishna's desire. If we're prema vina annahi chao, Narottam Das Thakur says that I have to be devoid of any other desire but prema. And if I start thinking about all these other things and thinking these things are really, really important, and yes, chanting Hare Krishna is really important, but there's child molestation going on, there's this and that, and I have to focus my mind on that, and I have to find out the bastards and expose them and do this and that. Certainly, if Krishna gives us that to do, or Gurudev gives us that to do, certainly if we see some abuses going on and we don't speak up, then we're also at fault. We must speak up. But if we want to change this world, just singing, doing kirtan about the child molesters is not going to change this world. It's not going to make it a better place. Therefore, we engage in Prema Sankirtan. We engage in Harinam, and we hear and chant about the pastimes of Krishna from the devotees. And by doing that, then we get strength to change this world. And if we don't change ourselves in that way, we can't change anything else. So first of all, charity begins at home. We have to change ourselves. So let's understand a little something about Raganuga Bhakti. It's a huge subject. We're just going to touch on it a little bit. Srila Rupa Goswami, this is a standard definition he gives in the first wave, in the second chapter, text 291 of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Tatra Adhikari. What is the Adhikar? What is the qualification for Raganuga Bhakti? Ragatmikaika Nishta Ye, Rajavasi Janadayal, Tesham Bhavapta Ye Lubdo, Bhavid Atradhikaravan. Someone who becomes greedy to attain a bhav, Tesham Bhavapta Ye Lubdo. Lubda means some greed to have some bhav, some mood similar to the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who are the Ragatmika Bhaktas, who are naturally situated with Krishna in Rag. That person is qualified for Raganuga Bhakti. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary explains that someone who's greedy to attain a bhav, similar to the people of Braj, perfects from Raganuga Bhakti, that's qualification for Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti literally means that when our mind just automatically goes there. If we want to argue about it, if we want to try to just speak in a philosophical, theoretical way about it, that's not Raganuga Bhakti. And if our mind is not naturally going there, that means that we're not ready for Raganuga Bhakti. So Raganuga Bhakti, the essence of it, according to Rupa Goswami, a few verses later, in the same section of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, is smarana, is remembrance. He says, Krishnam smaram janam chasya, prestam nija samihitam, tat tat kata ratas chaso, kuryad basam brije sudha. Remembering Krishna in Vrindavan, remembering Krishna's associates who have inclination for them, absorbing ourselves in hearing those kind of kata, tat tat kata, kata ratas chaso, doing all that, Kuryat Vasam Braj Sada, one should always live in Braj. And Jiva Goswami comments that this is a method of Raganuga Bhakti. And he says that if possible, one should live physically in places where Krishna lived, like Vrindavan. And if one can't do that, then one should live there mentally. My Gurmaji sometimes would say, is Kamsa a Brijbasi? Kamsa was born in Braj, but he's not a Brijbasi. So it's not that just physically living in the Dham is living in the Dham, but the most important aspect of living in the Dham is that we're living there in the mind. We're following in the footsteps of these devotees. This is Rag Anuga. We have some Rag, we have some natural inclination. We're Anuga, we're following in that natural inclination. Vishwanath says some similar things, but this is beginning a description of the method of Raganuga sadhana. One should remember the dearmost form of Krishna, Preshtam Krishnam, that form of Krishna which comes to our heart, the son of Nanda of Kaishore age, and the devotees of that particular form of Krishna, Ashyajanam, who have the same type of desires for serving Krishna as oneself, Nija Samhitam. This again is something which is realized. It's not something we just get up one morning and think, I really like. I remember I hadn't even been initiated. It's been living in the temple in a few weeks, and someone gave me a deity of Garuda, and I thought that's really cool. I'm really advanced now. I've got this deity, and I like the mood of Garuda. And I was just thinking that I assigned that to myself. As Srila Prabhupada said in that previous letter, it's not something artificial. It's something which should rise in a natural way. So all these things, one, the dear form of Krishna, that's very dear to the heart, that's something which rises naturally in the heart. And the particular devotees who are close to Krishna, who have the same desires of serving as we do. Remembering such devotees, one should live in Braj. If possible, one should physically live in Vrindavan, the place where Krishna resided as Nanda's son. If one cannot do that, one should live there mentally. This is Gaudiya Vaishnavism. This is such a very, very important thing. But we should understand what is the meaning of smarana. And this is what Narottam is describing to us in this verse today, that it means that we give up all other desires. And therefore, Narottam Das Thakur, he's saying that Seva Kori, that Swapanena Bala Ana Prema Vina Ana Nahichana. There should be no other subject that we're interested in. Even when we're dreaming, nothing else should come to our mind. This is real smarana. Smarana, therefore, in that sense, there's one great devotee who Prabhupada's godbrother and friend, Obiel Kapoor, wrote about in his book, Chaitanya and Raganuga Bhakti, whose name was Jagadish Das Babaji. And he lived not so long ago, even today. There's photos of him sometimes. When I'm looking for old paintings and things, I go to photo shops in Vrindavan. And sometimes they also have pictures here of Jagadish Das Babaji. And he used to say about Smarana, he was a Babaji practicing Smarana. He said, first Marana, then Smarana, which means that first you die, meaning you conquer all your desires, you rise above bodily consciousness before you can practice Smarana. We have to make our hearts pure before we can practice Smarana. So that Smarana is something which will come in a natural way. And for us, that begins with the chanting of the holy names. And therefore, it's said in the Adi Purana, Nanama Sadrisam Dhyanam, that of all the different types of dhyan, of meditation, there's no meditation equal to the meditation on the holy name. Agachat Smaranam Vishnu, Bhavya Sena Sadyate, Ostraspandana Matina Kirte, Nam. This is a verse quoted in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that Smarana is a little difficult, but Krishna Kirtan, Krishna Nam is a very easy thing. Now, Bhaktivinoda Thakur has given us a wonderful book called Amnaya Sutra, and therein he quotes Srila Jiva Goswami about a sequence of hearing. Because when we speak about Smarana, our acharyas say, that Bhaktivinoda says in another place, at first is Shravanam, then Kirtanam, then Vishnu Smarana. First, we hear, Shravan, we hear from the proper authority. And then Kirtan, we repeat what we've heard. So Jiva Goswami, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's quote, says, Ata krama prapta shravanam. He says, now we're going to speak about a krama, which is obtained prapta of shravanam. Let me put this on the board here for you guys. Very beautiful statement. Ata krama prapta shravanam. There's going to be a sequence of events of hearing. Tachcha nama rupa guna lila moya shabdanam shrotrasparshaha. Hearing about the Lord occurs when the ears touch the sounds of the Lord's. First thing he gives is nam, then rup, then guna, then lila moya. First of all, by hearing about Krishna's name, then by hearing about the form of Krishna. And it's important, we should hear about it. Then the guna, the qualities of Krishna. Then lila moya, shabdanam, shrota sparsha. These things should sparsha, they should touch our ears in this kind of sequence. Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Harinam Chintamani, he says a similar thing, that name prasvutito hai rupa guna karma. The word karma there refers to the same word here as lila, means the pastimes. That when the holy name blossoms, Krishna's form will automatically manifest. Then we'll understand his qualities. Then we'll understand his pastimes. So we take shelter of the holy name, not in a mechanical way, but in a very, very deep way, understanding theoretically these things also. And so then he goes on. Pratamam, first of all, namna shravanam. First of all, we have to hear the holy name. And that from that hearing, antakarana sudyartam apeksham. From that hearing the holy name, our heart will become purified. Then, sude chantakarane, then when our heart has become purified, rupa shravanena tat ubhaya yogita bhavati. Then when our heart is purified, then we start hearing descriptions about Krishna's form. Now, there's different levels, there's different degrees of that purification. I don't think it's appropriate to go out on the street and just walk up to people and say, hey, did you know that God is a blue boy? He likes cows a lot, and he's got a whole bunch of girlfriends, and this is his picture, and he likes to play a flute, and this is his mother. Then they lock you up, as they did Kirtanananda Prabhu in New York City in the early days. They locked him up in the rubber room, in the funny house, in the place where they keep the crazy people. I mean, what kind of crazy nonsense is this? Because people don't have qualification to hear it. But those early devotees who were still addicted to so many different sinful activities, they had some qualification to hear it, some qualification, I say, because they began pratamam namna shravanam antakarana. They began by hearing about Krishna, by hearing Krishna's name. And from that kirtan, hearing that thing, their hearts became purified to some degree. They had some faith. And then they could understand something about that. So Jiva Goswami says that at that point, they develop some qualification to hear about Krishna's guna and his qualities, both his name and his group, excuse me. And then he says, Nama Rupa, is that right? No. Samyagrite cha rupe gunanam spranam sampadyate. This is a part we just made. Nama Rupa guneshu samyak spuritesh eva lila nama spranam sustu bhavatitya vitpretya sadhana krama likitam. So that's natural. When you hear about Krishna's form, you also start hearing about his qualities. And this is Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rupa Goswami speaks about the form of Krishna, and he speaks all about the different wonderful qualities of Krishna, how Krishna is so kind, how Krishna is very gentle, how Krishna is very loving, how Krishna is very forgiving, and all these wonderful qualities. We should know that these things exist. We should hear something about them, but we should do things in a proper krama, in a proper sequence. So Jiva Goswami says, this is abhiprecha sadhana krama likitam. This is the proper krama, the proper sequence of our sadhana. So this is what our acharyas are giving. Different people, they like this thing, they like that thing. I don't know what everybody likes, but I would like to get the blessings of our acharyas. I would like to have the blessings of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jiva Goswami, Rupa Goswami, and I'm going to get their blessings by understanding what they've given, what they've told us. So Jiva Goswami then goes on to explain, Yadi Sakshat Eva Mahat Kritasya Kirtanasya Shravana Bhagyam Na Sampadyate Tadaiva Swayam Prita Kirtanam Iti. He says that if you should hear it, it implies that Mahat Kritasya, we should hear from the Mahat. We should hear from a great devotee. And he says, but if you can't do that, then Shravana Bhagyam, then you should chant yourself the pastimes about Krishna. And then he says, and if you don't have the ability to do that, then you just hear. Gana Shakti Bhave, there's no Shakti, you don't have that Shakti. Touch Srinoti, then you just hear. You play a recording, you read a book. Bahubir Militva Kirtanam Sankirtanam. And this chanting of Krishna's glories, means when many devotees come together and they're focused on Krishna's glories, this is real Sankirtan. This is a very, very important activity for us. So it begins with the holy name. And in the second canto of the Bhagavatam, there's a famous verse which I'd like to share with you along with the commentary Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And then I'd like to tell you a story or two. Let's see here. Shinvatam Shriya Nityam Granantaschas Chestitam Kalena Natidirgena Bhagavan Visute Hridi. The Lord quickly enters the heart of a devotee who, with faith, continually hears and chants about the Lord's activities. Vishwanath comments, Sopi Smarna Prayatna Shravana Kirtanayato Bhaktasya Navasyaka Ityaha Shinvata Iti. So he says that to make a big effort about this remembering Krishna, it's not necessary for someone who's doing Shravanam Kirtanam, for a devotee who's hearing and chanting nicely. Swaprayatnam Vinapi, even without doing a great endeavor, Bhagavan Swayameva Hridayam Pravishyatiti Shravanam Kirtananam Eva Smarnam Iti Gyapitam. Even without a great endeavor, just by hearing and chanting, Krishna spontaneously enters into the heart. And he says that this Shravanam Kirtanam, this is Smaranam. Shravanam Kirtanadinam Eva Smaranam Iti Gyapitam. You should understand this Shravanam Kirtanam means, in this verse, means to constantly hear, to remember the Lord. So that holy name, Name Prasvatito Hai Rupa Guna Karma, that holy name will blossom into Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes. In the Bhakti Ratnakar, Srila Narhari Chakravarti Thakur gives a beautiful example of this, that one day in Vrindavan, Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada was sitting and chanting the holy name. And in his japa, suddenly he saw Krishna, and he saw the gopis decorating Srimati Radharani while Krishna was watching. And Krishna revealed himself to the gopis, but not to Radharani. And the gopis were very, very happy. But Radharani wasn't aware that Krishna was there. So then the gopis, they decorated Radharani's hair, and they gave her a mirror. And when they put the mirror in front of her, Radharani looked in the mirror and she saw her face, and behind her, she saw Krishna. This is Bana Bihar at Kusum Sarovar. And then Radharani became very shy, and all the gopis started laughing. This story is told in several different ways. I'm just telling what's in Bhakti Ratnakar. And the gopis, they started laughing at this. And Rupa Goswami is chanting, he's having a very nice japa session. He also started laughing. Just at that time, a Vaishnav came to see him, and that Vaishnav, his name was Krishnadas. He wasn't able to walk. He was lame. He was dragging himself everywhere. And he shows up to have darshan of Rupa Goswami. And all of a sudden, Rupa Goswami starts laughing. And this Krishnadas thought, oh my gosh, this is supposed to be the greatest sadhu of our age. And he's laughing at me because of my body. He's not a sadhu at all. And so he left. And then Rupa Goswami's meditation disappeared. And it's a beautiful story with a lesson about Vaishnava Aparad, which I won't go into right now. I just wanted to give this particular point about how the holy name becomes the form of Krishna, becomes the qualities of Krishna. And I'd like to share with you something else. Srila Prabhupada, in that first quote that we read from Krishna book, he was saying how Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur has written this wonderful book, Krishna Bhavanamrita, and devotees who are interested in meditating on the pastimes of Krishna should read this book. So there's a number of different such books. And these books are important. These books, we should hear something about them. We should know such things exist. As Srila Prabhupada says in the Krishna book, he says, this Krishna book, that also gives such understanding. So we should hear something about Vrindavan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he says that just hearing about a place like Japan or London, I think he gives that example, if you've never been there, it's not the same as if you've actually been there. Although by reading about it, you may understand that London is a very rainy place. the sun only comes out once a year for 5 minutes. Maybe I'm being a little sarcastic. We spent some time in London. There's a lot of rain, and people are kind of depressed, and they read a lot of books, and they drink a lot of tea, and they like fish and chips. You can read things like that and understand something about that place, and maybe even develop some kind of attraction or interest in that place. But unless you meet someone who's been there and can really tell you about the place, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta explains this in one article in Sajjana Toshi. He says, unless you meet such a person, you can't really get a feel for it. But nevertheless, it's beneficial for us, even in this early stage too, as Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says, to know that such a thing exists. So I'd like to share with you a little something from Srila Kavi Karnapur's book, Ananda Vrindavan Champu. And just read something, and just, this is the kind of things that our acharyas want us to hear. So this is from the very first chapter. I offer my respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of Krishna, who are bound in friendship's constant embrace to the breasts of the Braj gopis, and are permanently stained with their fine bodily ointments. So he's offering obeisances. He's thinking, in the beginning of the book, he's saying that we're going to think about the lotus feet of Krishna, and we're thinking about them in connection with the gopis. Those feet who have constant friendship with the breasts of the Braj gopis. The radiant pink color of Krishna's foot soles comes from the kumkum anointing the upper part of the gopis' breasts. The dark blue color of his feet originates from the musk spread on the lower part of their breasts. The waves of light emanating from his moon-like nails comes from the sandalwood paste covering the middle portion of their breasts. So he's giving us immediately, the first thing in this book is the first verse. He's giving us a meditation on the lotus feet of Krishna, and everything is in connection with the gopis. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta once said that the only reason we worship Krishna is because Radharani likes him. Everything is connected with the gopis and with Srimati Radharani. May the two lotus feet of Krishna, the enemy of Putana, always protect us. His delicate toes resemble the petals of a pink lotus flower, and his slender ankles resemble the stalk of a lotus. His lotus feet hold the honey of his devotees' faith. The streams of light emanating from his toenails resemble the stamens of a lotus. The kumkum powder from the budding breasts of Radhika, which cling to his foot soles, resembles the pollen of the lotus flower. And then he goes on to meditate on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, especially Sri Damodar, Roy Ramananda, Rupa, and Sanatan. And then he offers his pranams to his Gurudev, Srinath Chakravarti, and how he glorifies him in different ways. And then he speaks about how Mahaprabhu and his associates have all left and gone back to Goloka Vrindavan. And because of the absence of qualified hearers of rasa, the skillful writers of rasa have also disappeared. This is a beautiful point that he's making. He's saying that you may say that the most important thing is the writer, but the most important thing here, he's saying, is the listener. And if the devotees have qualification, as Narottam is telling us in this verse, if their hearts are pure, then they want to hear this topic. They don't want to hear any other subject. And then skillful writers appear. But if there's no such qualified listeners, then the writers also disappear. And without them, without these two, the qualified listeners and the qualified writers, the ability to understand rasa and prema also vanished. Alas, the fragrance of perfectly composed poetry finds no shelter. And he goes on many, many verses speaking about poetry and the importance of poetry. And then he comes to a section, which we're going to read a little bit from, about the forest of Vrindavan. Now I will describe the form, qualities, and position of the transcendental forest of Vrindavan, which overflows with all wonderful attributes. Though the forest of Vrindavan contains the matchless essence of the majesty of Vaikuntha, Vaikuntha Saram, there is no limit to its great sweetness. Navai Kunta Saram. Although its splendor, Vaprabhuta, seems to arise from the field of Chit Shakti, or spiritual energy, it eternally manifests in newer ways, Navaprabhuta, at every moment. Though it is unadulterated, Akritakam, it is also the giver of bliss, Kritakam. Though it is perfect by the Sarup Shakti of the Lord, Prakriti Siddham, it is not created by the Maya Shakti, Aprakriti Siddham. Though its form is eternal, Nitya Bhutam, it is a dwelling place of Krishna's eternal associates, Anitya Bhutam. Banu Maharaj has translated this, is trying to capture and offer something. There's another translation which was done many years ago, which didn't capture a lot of the poetic sense of the Sanskrit words. Although Banu Maharaj is not giving us the Sanskrit shlokas, I could have thrown them in here, but it would have been make things more complicated. And I like how he's giving us this rhyming and the double meanings of things. It is a dwelling place of Krishna's eternal associates, Anitya Bhutam, or a dwelling place consisting of spiritual elements, although filled with sweet tasting fruits and other objects and the varieties of rasas like Sringara Ras, Surasa Artha. This forest is difficult to attain for the Devatas, Surasartha. Although it is covered with wonderful trees which are luxuriant with verdant leaves, Vipalavad, there's not the slightest possibility of calamity or dangers. Vrindavan's trees are eternally manifest and always replete with flowers and fruits. Though these trees are the places of Krishna's pastimes, Lila Yatana, they are filled with branches, Ali Ila Yatana, resounding with the humming of bumblebees. Although Vrindavan is covered with many kopa brikshas, Mandara Bahulam, it is also a pleasant place for good people, a mandaram. It is splendid with bakul trees, laden with leaves and fresh flowers, navakula. It is resplendent with tamala trees, which bend down in many rows, natamala. What more can be said of Krishna's lovers, who are like creepers, endowed with the ripe fruits of their breasts that are white from the chandan covering them, and red from the scratches of their lover afflicted by the strong blows of lust. Krishna is surrounded by his beloved gopis who appear like creepers of love. Similarly, Vrindavan is decorated with a variety of splendidly beautiful trees such as tall, bale, karanja, cinnamon, and red sandalwood. Just within a few meters of our house, or maybe 50 meters, we've got tall bale. We have a number of these trees. As Krishna is full of mercy, karuna, the forest is full of karuna trees. As an assembly of sages is adorned with exalted persons like Sandilya and Lomasha, similar the forest of Vrindavan is decorated with trees of bale, java, kadira, and jatabansi. So this is just a little taste, something of the glories of Vrindavan Dham, to help us understand what Srila Prabhupada is speaking about and how important it is to hear about these things, to hear about this place. And this is why we read Krishna book. I'd like to read you a little excerpt from a letter from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati about chanting and about smarana. And we'll finish up pretty quick here. I'm overjoyed to hear that your enthusiasm for chanting is increasing. As our contaminations are removed by chanting, the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes will be revealed to us in the holy name. There's no point in making a separate effort to artificially remember the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. The Lord and his name are one and the same. This will be understood clearly when the coverings in your heart are removed. By chanting without offenses, you will personally realize that all perfections come from the holy name. Through chanting, the distinction that exists between the self and the gross and subtle bodies is gradually effaced, and one realizes one's own spiritual form. Once aware of the spiritual body, as one continues to chant, one sees the transcendental nature of the Lord's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual form of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual qualities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's qualities. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual qualities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's pastimes. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, when he came to this world, he was very heavy with the Babajis and different persons who were stressing Smarana in a sentimental way, perhaps. Srila Prabhupada, perhaps it might even feel a little harsh. Prabhupada was calling them sahajas, the persons who are trying to think about Krishna in a premature kind of way. But reading from Jiva Goswami's commentary, and reading these points here of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, he's making the same point. Jiva Goswami says, Pratame, first of all, Shravanam, first of all you hear, then you chant, and then as your heart becomes purified, you can see all these things. Name prasutita hoy rupa guna karma. This is our system. Some Vaishnavas, as we've spoken in previous sessions, they have a little different bhajan pranali, and their Guru Janas stress smarana. And they're wonderful persons. I love them. They're Vaishnavas. I offer my pranams. But I'm going to follow Sato Brite. Rupa Goswami says, Sato Brite, follow your acharyas. I'm going to follow Srila Prabhupada, my Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, and understanding their system, what they saw for us, which was appropriate. Only the holy name of the Lord reveals the spiritual name, reveals the form of the living being. He goes on, by service to the holy name, we do not mean only the chanting of the holy name. It includes the other duties of the chanter. If we serve the holy name with the body, mind, and soul, then the direction of that service spontaneously manifests like the sun in the clear sky of the chanter's heart. What is the nature of the holy name? Eventually, all these understandings spontaneously appear in the heart of one who chants the holy name. The true nature of Harinam is revealed by listening to, reading, and studying the scriptures. It is unnecessary to write anything further on this subject. All these things will be revealed to you through chanting. Such a very, very important point. So I'd like to finish with a beautiful prayer to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, which was written by his disciple, Gauradas Brahmachari, later became Bhakti Deshika Acharya Maharaj. He passed away some time back. And he wrote a beautiful prayer called Sri Sri Prabhupada Dasakam. And the concluding verse is a verse I like to recite every day. And it speaks about Smarana and how we come to Smarana. And it begins by speaking about understanding being honest with myself and understanding my position. Hey Dina Bandho Karanayaka Sindho. He's approaching Gurudev. Oh, Gurudev, you're Dina Bandhu. You're the savior of the fallen. Karanayaka Sindho. You're an ocean of mercy. Kuru Prasadam Mahimanda Mudhe. Kuru Prasad, please be merciful to me. Mahimanda Mudhe. I'm just a mudha. My mind is all over the place. I'm so very, very bad. And worse than that, Lakshaparadhe Bahupapagadi. I'm always doing offenses to everyone. So then what is my prayer? Tapada Padme Stumatishta Krishna. May I always remember your lotus feet. And may I always remember Krishna. What does it mean to remember the lotus feet of Gurudev? It means may I remember the katha that Gurudev is speaking, because that's the function of Guru, is to speak Krishna katha. And by remembering that Krishna katha that I've heard from Gurudev, I'll be able to remember him, and I'll be able to remember the lotus feet of Krishna. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here. Let's look again at the verse. So again, we're beginning this chapter 7, Akantika Bhakti Ritti, the characteristics of an unalloyed devotee. And this is the first verse in that section. Let's look at this and we'll go ahead with a little discussion. Radha Krishna Karunjan Swapmanena Bala An Prema Vina Ananahi Chanu Jugala Kishora Prem Lakshabana Jaina Hain Arati Priditi Rasidyan. I will meditate on Radha and Krishna. I'll not speak about any other topics, even in my dreams. I'll not hanker for anything else except loving service to the divine youthful couple. The loving sentiments of Radha and Krishna are like gold refined 1,000,000 times. So why is he saying this Lakshabana Jaina Hema, that this gold 1,000,000 times? Because generally in traditional goldsmithing in India, maybe after 2 or 3 times, if you melt the gold 2 or 3 times, they say the gold is pure. That's as pure as you can get it. But here he's saying 1,000,000 times. So that indicates how pure our consciousness must be for us to be able to actually take up this path of smarana, for remembrance of the Lord to come to our heart. So in the beginning, we want to chant the holy names, and that holy name will emerge. From that holy name will emerge Krishna's Gun, Rupa, and Leela. Everything will come in an automatic, natural way, not in an artificial way. So Nautam says, therefore, my mind, please constantly meditate on Radha and Krishna as your only lovable object. If we do like that, then our hearts will become pure. And naturally, this remembrance of Krishna will arise. We don't have to do anything else artificially. I'd like to look one more time at this statement from Srila Prabhupada's letter to Prahladananda. He said that generally it is a process of simply chanting here. But if Krishna's Leela comes into remembrance, that's very good. And it should come automatically, not that you're remembering artificially. It should be a natural thing. And this is what Jiva Goswami says. This is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta says. This is Sato Bhiti. This is the path of our acharyas. So I'm going to stop there. I saw somebody wrote something in the chat, Alexander Prabhu, my humble pranams. He says, in the last session, you spoke about the dialogue between Lord Chaitanya and Ramananda Roy. Why, when the Lord asks about the highest goal of life, does Ramananda first talk about Varnashram, then about dedicating the fruits of activity, then about renunciation, and about the Gyanis, etc.? Well, we have to become firmly fixed in something. So if you just jumped all the way up to Radha Krishna Leela, which is really all that he and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu were interested in, if he just started speaking immediately about that, and then someone later hears this conversation, they may think, oh, this wasn't right. They didn't understand about Varnashram. Varnashram's higher. Or they may think that offering things to the Lord is higher. This is higher. That's higher. So many different things are higher. And so he begins again in a krama. And many, many times our acharyas do this. They begin with the most basic thing, and then they go one step at a time, higher, higher, higher. Because by doing so in that way, through that krama, then all your doubts are satisfied. Whereas if you just jump to the topmost thing immediately, then it may seem rather cheap. And there are people, even new persons, new devotees who are interested, non-devotees who may be interested in the intimate pastimes of Radha Krishna. I've seen our friend Satyaraj Prabhu in some of his publications. He's had some conversations with professors and different persons, and they're very interested in Manjari Bhav and this and that. And he speaks to them about those things. And you may say, well, better that they hear, and in a krama like this, they should hear you're not your body, and how we should not perform sinful activities and do this and this and this. But he's just going right to this point because better they make some friendship, better they have some kind of interest in Krishna consciousness. And then when they become serious about Krishna consciousness, and they come to Guru, to Sadhu Guru, then the Sadhu will tell them, now you begin here, you do this, you do this, you do this, this, and this, and they'll give them some krama. Is that helpful, Prabhuji? Alexander Prabhu?
Yeah, thank you.
It's a great question. Thank you. Yes, and Lila Purushottam makes a great comment. This is the same structure of Rupa Goswami's definition of pure devotion. Anyabhilasita shunyam jnana karmadi anabhitamana kulyena krishnanu silanam bhaktutam. He doesn't begin by speaking about pure devotion. He begins by speaking what's not pure devotion, and then what is a surup lakshana, what is the primary qualifications of that. So Bonnie, I don't want your arm to get tired. You got your hand up in the air. You want to share something? Ask some question.
Well, I was wondering, Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams. I was wondering, so in Goloka Vrindavan, if there's no Dwarka, no separation, and no, if Krishna doesn't leave Vrindavan, does that mean that Jagannath is not visibly present?
That's an interesting question. In the conversation between Sanatana Goswami and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatana Goswami speaks about different planets in the spiritual world. And one of them is Sri Kshetra, it's Nilachal, the place of and Jagannatha is the deity, the presiding deity there. So there's some, and Prabhupada and Acharya speak about this, there's some understanding about Vipralamba even in the spiritual world. There's at least some rumors of it. And they become very disturbed by that. In the same way that Srila Prabhupada says that there's no demons there, but there's rumors. Sometimes somebody says, did you hear there's a demon who's come? There's no demon, but they're just speaking some rumor. And it creates some rasa, some kind of thing. Is that helpful?
It's very exciting to think about Jagannath having a planet, but it'd be very scary to think about not seeing Jagannath, even though Krishna is Jagannath. It's still kind of unfathomable to think of not having the form of Jagannath in some way.
Your comment is the exact same thing that Gopal Kumar was feeling too. When he came to Jagannath Puri and he was in ecstasy. This is the Lord of my life. This is the best of everything. And then sometimes he would remember Vrindavan and he would think about leaving. And then there'd be another festival and he would see sometimes Jagannath playing a flute as Krishna and he would think, oh, I don't need to go. And you just stay here. And then later he went this place and that place and he went to Maharlok and Tepalok and Janalok and Shiva Lok and then Vaikuntha. And he went to Dwarka, he went to all these different places and he wasn't satisfied. And finally in Dwarka, he met his guru again, Narad Muni, and Narad Muni told him, Kintupadesham, Kintupadesham hitamekam etam matashrinu Sri Purushotamakyam. He said, listen to me very carefully. There's another place which is not far from here. He said, it's that Sri Kshetra, and it's Vrindavan. He said that Sri Kshetra is non-different from Vrindavan. But it's a very, very esoteric subject matter. This place is described in the Skanda Purana. What is it? Krishna Kona, you remember the verse? I'm trying to think. Rahasya Tat, thank you. I just look at her and the verse comes to my mind. Rahasya Tat Paramam Vishnu, Stanam Anutamam. That this place is Rahasya. It's a very, very confidential place. And my teachers have stressed that this place, we find in the Sarita Darshini commentary of Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and in the Laghu Vaishnava Toshini of Jiva Goswami in the 10th canto in chapters 46 and 47, some description how there's two chambers of Vrindavan. There's a chamber of union and a chamber of separation. And my teachers have explained how this Jagannath Puri, this is the chamber of separation. So it's in Vrindavan, but it's not in Vrindavan. It's there, but it's not there. It's a very, very esoteric thing. It's a big subject matter. Is that helpful? Something?
Very good. Thank you.
Are you still around Chandramouli Maharaj?
Well, he went to Chicago yesterday. I was with him on Monday evening in New York. So yeah.
You were at Rath Yatra?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Mars must have been there too. I think I saw his picture actually. Yeah,
Yes.
that's good. You're very fortunate.
Maharaj was, and Radhanath Swami did a big kirtan in the Brooklyn Temple.
Uh-huh. And let me guess, because I am a little psychic. Chandramauli Maharaj danced like a madman.
And he made everyone else dance like madmen also.
Because that's always Chandramauli Maharaj. He always dances like a madman, even though I must be getting close to 80 years old now or something.
He dances like a teenager.
I know I can't even. I'm 65 and I can't dance anymore. I'm very bad. Sometimes we get a little spirit. Okay, thank you, Bonnie. Anybody else with any reflections, comments, questions? Maybe you protest, you're unhappy with something, you want to complain, chastise me. Okay. Leela Purushottam, I know you have something. Why don't you share something with us and we'll go ahead and finish then. Where are you at?
I'm at the Adriatic coast in Croatia.
Wow.
You can have a
You're a
look.
great soul.
Yeah, I was first when I saw the verse, actually, it brought me a remembrance of that type of the prayers, like Das Goswami's Svaniyama Dashakam. You know, like it's not that because if I would have a how to say, I don't want to like if I would take this verse for my meditation contemplation, I would have to take it like this. It wouldn't be proper for me to chant it from a pseudo realized platform, like I don't care for any other topics, but in this mood of impose on myself this conviction of like certain uh, behavior on the path on the path of my bhajan, then it's amazing. Then it's so I was reading that verse like that first, and I was happy for you to I never knew that Srinath Chakravarti was the guru of Kavi Karnapura, so that's a new information for me. Thank you. And I wanted to ask something. It might be actually quite close to you, and I would like to understand how to understand this topic, because we are warned very much to be careful about the sahajiya propensities and being artificially absorbed in Radha Krishna Leela. Now there's the whole culture in India, and your Guru Maharaja's whole family is the proof of that, of devotees going from village to village doing Leela Kirtans, which is exactly what it means. It doesn't contain much philosophy. Like we can say, okay, Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book is a safe ground because there is a Leela, but Srila Prabhupada always takes care to explain properly every fine aspect of what could go wrong in our understanding. But these Leela Kirtans, yeah, probably I can't imagine that there is a doorkeeper at the pandal checking if only pure devotees are attending. So how do we understand this?
Yeah, those Leela Kirtans begin in fourth gear. There's no first, second. It is starting. It just takes off immediately. Well, we should understand though that those villagers, they're regularly hearing Bhagavatam. They're reading Gita. Practically every old mother, she's reading Gita every day and Mahabharata. They know verses.
Every day. Tulsi Arati every day.
Yeah, they're doing Tulsi Artik every day. It's a big part of things. So they have a strong foundation of these things. It's a completely different culture. It's very important that we understand the audience and we understand our own adhikar. It's a very, very important thing for us to advance it. We have to understand the adhikar of our audience. And this is why I've been stressing so much these statements from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada, and not reading so much from Ananda Vrindavan Champu or stuff like that, which we might really like to do. It'd be really sweet. We'll just sit down every day and just do this thing. But we have to understand our adhikar, the adhikar of the audience. And so Srila Prabhupada understood our adhikar. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta understood, Bhaktivinoda understood. I want to follow what they're giving us. And Gadagiri, it's another thing. And then devotees who are going there also, now that we've been the Western devotees and that, they understand Bhagavatam, they understand Gita in a general way. And those Leela Kirtans are not, even in Gadagiri culture, it's not like every day they're having Leela Kirtan. They're chanting Hare Krishna. And generally in a program, they do, I don't know what percentage, but the larger percentage of the Kirtan is just Nam Kirtan that they're doing, and they're chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and that. And then there's some Leela Kirtan on certain festival days, in Janmashtami or Rasa Purnima, and like that. Is that helpful, Prabhuji?
Yeah.
You know, Leela Purushottam Prabhu,
Yeah.
I have a humble request to you. Would you please come to Orissa and come with me to Gadagiri, and we'll bring someone with us who speaks Odia nicely, and we'll sit in some of those Leela Kirtans, and someone can explain it to us, and you can listen and watch them and just feel it. Would you do that for me sometime?
I will. It will become my meditation to fulfill this. It's not even a request. It's actually a great gift and offer from you. So I'll keep it in my heart, and I will think how to fulfill
But
it.
there's some austerities. There's not always AC, and sometimes there's big giant spiders in the room and cockroaches.
Well, the last one, last one in the picture, I wouldn't share the room with him. I have to be honest. I have kind of a slight arachnophobia, not terrible one, but slight one, and I wouldn't be ready to share the room with
I
this
told
guy.
that story about the babies. And how did I know that about the babies? I've seen these hunter spiders and they really freaked me out. And so I looked them up, and everybody's saying they're really good. They get rid of cockroaches, they do this and that, and you should just live with them. And I thought, yeah, that's cool. I'll just live with them. So I just avoided them, and they did their thing, I did my thing, and they could eat our cockroaches. And I'm happy with that. And then one day we're coming back in the house with Bhakti Rupa Prabhu in the evening, and right in front of us is this huge, I mean, like this big, a hunter spider on the floor, just sitting there. And I said, hey, Bhakti Rupa, well, look, this is a hunter spider, and they're really good like this and this. And I started going on my kind of new age, friendly, appreciative thing. And Bhakti Rupa says, get him out. And I said, Prabhu, I didn't want to touch the thing. What am I going to do? He says, take a broom and give it. And I'm looking at it, and it looked like it was sitting on a white dish or something. And what is it like this? That's really weird. And so then I grabbed the broom, and to my surprise, the spider doesn't even really try to run away. Later, I realized it couldn't probably move. And I put the spider in the dustpan and held it there, and then took it, and all of a sudden, then I could see that white thing was the eggs, and there were hundreds, maybe like 1,000 or more little babies going all. Get them all. So I swept them all up gently and took them all outside. So you get along with Bhakti Rupa Prabhu very well.
I remember some 15 years back, probably in Mayapur, we've had one, probably the same one, in a corridor, in a corner, in a corridor. And I was calling the owners, the house owners. What about that? They're like really scared. And this lady, she spoke. They spoke only Bengali, like they didn't speak a word English. And she just started to laugh and, oh, choto, choto. It was probably the biggest spider I ever seen. Oh, choto, choto.
But I've never heard of anybody being bitten by them or anything. But they're creepy, I have to admit.
Yeah. Okay, but I accept your agya,
Good.
if I say so.
I'm looking forward to seeing you soon, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Gorni
Thank
Type
you.
has some comment here. Ed Gorni type with smiling face to a thing here. When Krishna left the Ras dance the second time with the desire to be alone with Sri Radha, Radha didn't follow him. Later, all the gopis searched for Krishna through different places around Govardhan, and at every place they remembered about different leelas, what happened there. In time, they were so satisfied that they forgot to search for Krishna anymore. That is the power of Krishna Katha. In separation, it creates stronger attraction than meeting with Krishna himself. Wonderful. Such a beautiful quote. That's from Krishna book? Ah, from Tabakatamritam. I wanted maybe from your Gromash. Beautiful book. Thank you, Prabhuji. You're also invited to come with Leela Purushottam Prabhu too. We'll go, the three of us. It's a really nice thing. You know, one thing I like doing very much, and it is a little austere because there are spiders, and the spiders are the easy guys. The snakes are the ones I'm more worried about, and sometimes scorpions too. I remember we had a scorpion in our house. It was about black scorpion, about this big. Pretty serious thing. India's a little bit like the wild, wild west, something sometimes. But when we travel in the countryside in Orissa and we go to these ancient places, and we're doing research and things for our writing, I would always bring a harmonium and a mridanga, and we go there and we sit down, we do some kirtan for the deities there, and all the villagers come and they're astonished. Videsis doing kirtan, oh my God, the foreigners. And they just love it. And then we do our kirtan, we give them a book or two or something, and we ask them some questions. And it's just such a wonderful rasa, wonderful way to travel and go. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I still have some japa. Krishna Kun, you have a comment you want to share? Shout out from Krishna Kun. What do you think?
Big effort in remembering Krishna is not necessary.
I can't hear you. I'm sure the devotees on the line can't hear you. You got to come around a little bit and
I
speak.
said, wonderfully encouraging that a big effort is not necessary to remember Krishna for one who hears and chants.
And that's the conclusion of Jiva Goswami. That's the conclusion of Bhaktivinoda, the conclusion of Bhaktisiddhanta, and the conclusion of Srila Prabhupada. It's not just that all you ISKCON people, you're just a bunch of neophytes and you don't understand the real rasa kind of thing. No, this is Jiva Goswami. He also understands the qualification of people.
But it does mean hearing and chanting 24/7.
Yeah, that's a minor detail. Chanting 24 hours, 24/7. All right. So thank you all so much. Now let me look in the calendar here before we finish. I think that next week is a little unsure. Next week, we've got the temple president from Chopati coming here, Shamananda Prabhu, and
you're
also
giving a
Trai
class.
Prabhu and his wife.
Trai Prabhu is arriving and you are giving a class at the Panda first day.
Oh, and I'm giving a class at the Pando. So I'm going to have to cancel next week session. Maybe we can do something on Tuesday. I'll write something in our joint chat, which by the way, Alexander, would you like to, you're on WhatsApp, Alexander Prabhu? You are. Would you, we have a group for all the devotees for this session. Maybe I can add you there also. It's just easier. We discuss things in that. Alexander's been our guest of honor quiet guest of honor in the back. I love all the books behind you, Prabhuji. It really touches my heart. I see anybody who likes books are okay with me. Well, we discussed there sometimes we have to have a different date, and it's going to be a little complicated, more complicated after that because we're going to Hungary, going to Delhi, then Hungary, and then we're going crazy with the Padayatra, a bunch of God's idiots. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, the second will not be possible because we will be.
Yeah, Krishna Kun saying in a second it won't be possible. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Prabhupada said impossible is a word in the fool's dictionary. So
you can do it on the flight.
We never know. All right. Thank you all so much. It's really wonderful to be able to get a chance to think about Narottam Das Thakur's teachings and acharyas and that. And Alexander, I also, you wrote me some message on Facebook. I didn't even reply to that. I'm going crazy. I got so many different things. I started to check which one I can recognize the Purushottam was saying. But your books, Alexander, they're in English or they're in Russian or Ukrainian?
No, mostly in Russian, Ukrainian. In this room.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So Lila Purushottam, who doesn't like Russian. There's a few people today, you know a few who don't like Russia. Some people don't like Russian language too. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol, Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bhye Vacha Patitanam, Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo